Please welcome to the TEDx Sonoma County stage, Brandon Spars.
Thank you very much. I'm a high school teacher, and every year I give an assignment for my 9th grade students to write about a hero that they admire. And traditionally, my students have written about Mahatma Gandhi, Hillary Clinton, Martin Luther King, but I've noticed over the years, they've been having increasing difficulty choosing a hero. And I wondered why this was. And I wondered if it might have been because in the media recently, we have had so many figures quickly rise to fame only to experience an immediate demise. I actually had students write about each of these figures, only later to find out that many of them are facing allegations for things as serious as murder. This reached a point of crisis for one of my students who felt she simply could not choose a hero from either the media or from history. It was the day before the assignment was due, and she still had not chosen a hero. I made a concession. Why don't you choose somebody you know? And she thought, and then she looked at me and she said, "Have you done anything heroic?" I thought you'd never ask. My brush with heroism takes place in the archipelago of Indonesia. I was trying to get from the island of Bali up to central Sumatra. And to do that in Indonesia, that means you take a bus ride. The buses go on to ferries and simply go between. You don't even have to get off. Well, there was one seat left, and it was next to a woman wearing a veil that looks very similar to this one. Now, her family was not that happy with the fact that she would be seated next to a tourist for the next 3 days. Their experiences with tourists had been in banks when tourists will walk in wearing bikinis. So they weren't that thrilled that their daughter would be next to me. But I quickly assured them I wasn't like the other tourists. I was a volunteer. I was going to be teaching at a prestigious university. And you could say when that bus left, it was a very warm set-off for us. We were like one big happy family. That is, until the bus began to actually move. She pulled out a plastic bag and began to vomit immediately, filling the bag with all kinds of ricey liquid. Then, striking a dramatic pose, she shouted, "Mabuk!" and rather carelessly lobbed the bag over me so that it hit the armrest, dashed vomit in the aisle, on the armrest, and on my pants. She filled 3 more bags. And to make it even more confusing, at the first rest stop, she went in and ate copious quantities of food, which she then vomited all over me again. At one rest stop, I decided to take action. I walked towards her, my pants crackling with the shellac that had hardened on them, and I gripped the plate, which was covered with all these fried soft-shell crabs, and I said, "Why are you doing this? You're going to eat this and then throw it back up over the both of us. Don't do it anymore." And I pulled on the plate, and to my surprise, she pulled back. I pulled harder, but she pulled back with such force and with such an expression of fierce determination that I gave up. I tried something else. I walked to the entrance of the bus and I struck great poses of indignation. I shouted things like, "Her spitting is making me shy." This is in my bad Indonesian, of course. I question the new furniture. Everybody filed up onto the bus. I was the last one, still in dramatic poses. And the driver finally looked at me, and he said something with such authority and such confidence that I immediately just got back into my place on the bus and experienced a shower of crab legs and other body parts. I have since decoded what he said. It was something like, just get your white ass on the bus. We've all got to deal with a little bit of vomit from time to time. She eventually fell asleep. And I looked at her, and her veil had hardened with the vomit, so that it looked like an old man's beard jutting off her chin. And on the very end, stuck in the fabric, was a single crab claw, rising up like a question mark, a symbol of all the uncertainty in that moment. Like, what was I doing with my life? Why was I in Indonesia? Why did she keep eating and vomiting on me? And another question, where on earth were we? At this point, we were somewhere in Sumatra. I still to this day can't find it on the map. But we were deep in the jungle of Sumatra, the Jambi rainforest. And we had arrived at what was something like an outpost. It was both a restaurant for buses that came through, but it also sold wares to people from the forest, things they could not produce. Plastic buckets, mops, brooms, sacks of rice, sacks of laundry detergent. All of these wares were hanging from the ceiling, and beneath that was the restaurant. The owner came out in typical Sumatran style with 200 tiny plates balanced on his shoulder, and he would deal them out onto the tables. I'll be darned if that girl didn't choose the largest item on the menu. It's the biggest darn squid I have ever seen in my life. It was the size of a plastic shopping bag, and it didn't even fit on her plate. And she began to gnaw, tentacles first, into the body, sending a jet of black ink down her chin. I was about to take action again. But then there was a noise, a shout. Yeah! It was the owner of the restaurant. And this time in his hands, he held a Louisville Slugger baseball bat. He seemed to be tracking something that was moving around the restaurant with great speed. A mysterious satellite in orbit, perhaps. It became clear what it was when it landed on one of the tables. It was a large male spider monkey, a 45-pounder. Now, these two had met before. This was an eternal battle between two mortal enemies. This monkey knew to get what he could and then launch himself back up into the rafters just before the bat would come down on the table. Now, fate would have it, that monkey would see the largest item, which was on the table with the woman. And he landed there. And he reached his paw forward and took the squid. I'll be danged if she didn't do the same thing she did when I tried to take her food. She pulled back, and the monkey pulled harder. And she pulled back harder. Well, it would seem in this case, the monkey was the smarter of the two. He knew that the squid was attached to her arms, which was attached to her torso, and this, of course, was attached to the head. He let go of the squid and shot up into her face, sending her reeling back. Total loss of balance, like wearing a 45-pound motorcycle helmet. Meanwhile, the owner was encroaching with the bat. I began to feel something. Prods, pokes, pushes. And when I turned around, the entire busload of people had assembled behind me. "Go to her," they said. "Help her." In exasperation, I asked, "Why me?" And a man with a look of desperation on his face said, "Because she's your wife." Wife! The very woman I despise most in the world right now, and they thought she was my wife. It was that warm send-off that had given them that impression, I believe. Well, a door had opened. I could have remained the cantankerous, whiny, horrible tourist that I had been up to that point. But I could also enter into this door. And through it was the realm of heroism. It was a combination of a push and also a hesitant step I took that sent me right into the path of the baseball bat. I saved the woman and the monkey from getting hit. Two more things happened. The monkey took this as his chance to escape. A few quick pelvic thrusts. This is a monkey defense mechanism. He shot hot urine and greasy hormones into her eyes, her nose, her mouth. She fell back convulsing on the floor. And there I was. I had entered. I had arrived. To cheers, I knelt by her side. I scooped her up, and there was applause from the people from the bus. And then, with tears of joy streaming down some of their faces, I walked through them and lay her on her seat in the bus. And then I began to nurse her. I wiped all the monkey hormones off her face. I fed her bits of water. I let her burp squid tentacles over us. And to everyone's surprise and confusion, it was I who escorted her off the bus into the arms of her real husband. Well, remember, I was telling this to a student. "What'd you think?" I asked. She looked at me and she asked, "Can I use that?" I have her essay here. And leave it to a 14-year-old girl to completely undermine my modestly guarded heroism. This is what she wrote. The young woman in the story was actually, in my opinion, the real hero. While my teacher did take a blow on the shoulder and did carry her back to the bus, she was the one who effected change. She was the one who motivated him to reach deep within himself and overcome his own pettiness. And finally begin to behave in a kind and humanitarian way. The young woman in the veil inspired goodness in another person, and that, to me, is the best definition of heroism. Now, she concluded her essay with the following remarks, and in these remarks we find the message of my talk. I don't need heroes to have walked across Afghanistan or won the Olympics. Whereas yesterday I didn't think I had any heroes. Now I have many. Almost everyone I know is potentially a hero. And I'll just add, in this way, we have as many heroes in this theater as there are people. Thank you very much.